Good day, everyone. Our lesson for today is all about one past but many histories, controversies, and conflicting views in Philippine history. For our first activity, supply the missing letters depending of its definition and tell me the word. Number one, a discussion marked especially by the expression of opposing views, dispute the decision arouse, a controversy among the students, quarrel strike. Okay, what is your answer? Okay, it's correct. Controversies. Number two, relating to beliefs, needs, facts, etc. that are different and opposing. Okay, what is your answer? It's correct. Conflicting. Number three, is a revolt among a group of people, typically of a military or of a crew, to oppose, change, or overthrow an organization to which they were previously loyal. Okay, what is your answer? That's correct. It's mutiny. For our first video, it's all about works of Fernando Amorsolo's paintings. Okay, let's watch the video and take down notes all the possible themes or paintings that Fernando Amorsolo's exhibit. Let's watch the video.
Fernando Amorsolo Iqueto is one of the most important artists in the history of the Philippines. This short video features 50 of his paintings set to music. Each of these 50 paintings has been bought and sold by Geringer Art, a Honolulu-based company which specializes in the art of Fernando Amorsolo.
Okay, class, pagkatapos nating mapanood ng video, syempre naitala natin yung mga tema, yung pinapasa ng mga paintings. Tulad halimbawa ng pamilya, isang payak na pamumuhay, o kaya naman ay larawan ng mga naliligo sa batis na napaka linis na batis. Okay, sa mga paintings ni Fernando Amorsolo, mapapansin natin, ang pinaka-lugar or setting ay ang Pilipinas. Yung payak na pamumuhay ng isang pamilyang Pilipino. Subalit, ang naging kontrobersya dito ay ang pagkakaroon ng mga paintings na nude or mga hubad na larawan na naliligo sa batis. Okay, maaaring sa sining o art ay wala namang masabi natin na kalaswaan. Ito naman ay isang art or ito'y ginuhit niya para ang intensyon niya ipakita yung ganda ng mga Pilipina. Okay, panoorin naman natin ngayon yung works of Juan Luna's paintings. Ganun din itala natin yung mga tema or yung pinapaksa ng kanyang mga larawan at mamaya ay isa-isahin din natin kung ano yung maaari natin makita. Okay, let's watch the video. Okay, class, batay sa inyong napanood, ano-ano nga ba yung tema ng paintings ni Juan Luna? Diba meron tayong nakitang mga batang lalaki, batang babae, opisyal ng pamahalaang Kastila, mga lugar sa Madrid, mga lugar sa Portugal, Madrid, Spain, mga lugar sa Paris, mga iba't ibang kababaihan, mayroong Spanish, mayroong Italian, mayroong Portuguese, mga iba't ibang lugar sa Europa. Dito ay ipinakita rin yung mga nude paintings ng babae. Pero ang pinaka-controversial sa lahat ay yung ginuhit ni Juan Luna na escolarium na may kita na hatak or hila-hila ng isang sibil o gwardiya sibil ang isang Pilipino o ang isang tao kahit patay na siya ay hinihila siya. Kumbaga ay double death. At dahil nga dito, may controversial sa ginuhit ni Juan Luna na escolarium na mababakas dito ang mensahe nito yung ginagawang pang-aabuso ng mga Espanyol o ng Spaniards sa ating mga kapwa Pilipino noon, sa ating kababayang Pilipino. Okay, tapos na nating panoorin ang dalawang paintings ni Fernando Amorsolo at Juan Luna. Talakay na natin. Okay, works of Juan Luna and Fernando Amorsolo's paintings. It's not every day that the art of two renowned Filipino masters are housed under the same roof. It's even more impressive when those two artists are Juan Luna and Fernando Amorsolo. At dito ipiniture yung kanilang mga paintings. Siyempre yung iba't ibang mga naipinta nila ay maaaring batayan sa kung ano yung kalagayan ng Pilipinas sa panahong yun o sa mga karanasan nila sa pagpunta sa iba't ibang mga lugar o iba't ibang mga bansa, gayon din yung pakikisalamuhan nila sa iba't ibang tao, maaaring opisyal ng pamahalang Kastila o kaya naman naging kasamahan nila at kaibigan, okay? O kaya naman ay kanilang mga kasama or nakasama sa kanilang paglalakbay o kanilang mga pagta-travel, yung kanilang travelogue. As a part of BPI Foundation's Obra Art Series, Historia offers a glimpse into our history through the eyes of celebrated Filipino artists. The exhibition is currently running at the ground floor exhibit hall of Ayala Museum, where 54 artworks from BPI's private art collection will be displayed until August 12. Okay, maaring doon sa mga ipinakita na paintings ni Fernando Amorsolo at Juan Luna, ay makikita natin ito sa exhibit na isinasagawa ng BPI. Maaring 2 years ago ito. At dito makikita yung kanilang iba't ibang koleksyon ng mga larawang iginuhit ni Amorsolo at ni Luna. The exhibit is divided into 4 sections and takes you on a journey through Philippine history and art from the beginning of 19th century, representing the time when BPI was established as Bangko Espanyol Filipino de Isabel II up until the modern art period. Okay, yung dating BPI or yung dating Bangko Espanyol Filipino de Isabel II, yan ngayon ay BPI. Okay, sa ngayon, maaari natin masabi na may kita dito sa koleksyon na ito yung iba't ibang seksyon ng kasaysayan ng Pilipinas noong ika-19 na taon or 19th century. Ayan. Visitors are typically inclined to go straight to the masterful works of Luna and Amorsolo, but historian curator Kenneth Esguerra encourages everyone to start with the 18th and 19th century prints. The exhibit opens with several Spanish colonial era maps and prints depicting Manila as an entrepot for commerce and trade. Among the selection of prints is an early map of the Philippines from 1785, a woodblock engraving crafted by Antonio Sata and Sons titled Isole Filipina or Isole Filipina. Okay, dito ay makikita natin na yung curator, yung pinaka nag-manage nun, is si Kenneth Esguerra. Hinikayat niya ang lahat na magsimula sa mga pagpapakita ng exhibit ng 18th and 19th century prints. At gayon din naman makikita natin yung mga nakaraang Spanish colonial era maps and prints. Ibig sabihin, makikita natin dito yung mapa ng Pilipinas na kung saan ay nung sakop pa tayo ng mga Espanyol. Mapa ng Pilipinas na patungkol sa komersyo at pagkipagkalakalan. At naka-engrave or masabi nating naka-lilok sa wood block sa isang kahoy yung masabi nating trade or yung pagkipagkalakalan ng mapa ng pagkipagkalakalan noong 1785 na ginawa ni Antonio Zata at ang kanyang mga anak na pinamagatang Aizol Filipino. Viewers will then have the pleasure of seeing the iconic works of our very first national artist, Fernando Amorsolo, images of a sunlit pastoral Eden with elegant maidens and hardworking farmers reveal the nuances of Amorsolo's romantic nationalistic style. Also featured in the collection is Amorsolo's masterpiece, The Galleon of Trade, an example of his motivation to give Filipinos their identity during the American colonial period. At mapapansin natin na yung ating kauna-unahang alagad ng sining, pambansang alagad ng sining si Fernando Amorsolo, marami siyang iginuhit na larawan na nagpapastol o kaya naman nagsasaka, yung mga eleganteng mga babae, ayan, yung mga masisipag na mga magsasaka, at syempre yung mga romantikong lugar. At pinakita rin dito ni Amorsolo ang kanyang masterpiece sa kanyang koleksyon, yung The Galleon of Trade, yung pagkipagkalakalang galyon. Okay. Ito yung motivasyon nila sa mga Pilipino para malaman ng mga Pilipino o makilala na tayo ay Pilipino sa panahon ng American colonial period o sa panahon ng pananakop ng mga Amerikano. The final and most extensive section, Philippine Modern Art, offers a look into creating minds of 20th century Filipino artists exploring neo-realism. Images of mother and child, farmers, fishermen, and landscape are displayed in bright color and semi-abstract formation. A standout of collection is Norma Bellesa's Mga Magsasaka, a vibrant oil painting that disregards scale and proportion, yet evocatively depicts rural farmers working in sweltering heat. Dito ay ipinakita rin yung Philippine modern art na 20th century, na kung saan yung neo-realismo, mapapansin natin na ito'y makatotohanan na image ng isang ina at anak, mga magsasaka, mga mangingisda, at yung iba't ibang mga landscapes na mga drawing niya ay talaga masabi nating napakakukulay at merong semi-abstract na formation. At syempre, yung pinaka nag-stand out dito, yung koleksyon ni Norma Bellesa's Mga Magsasaka. Dahil ito ay ginuhit mula sa oil painting at syempre hindi na pinakita dito yung pinaka magandang scale. Dinisregard na dito yung scale kasi nga ito ay naka-proportion lamang sa mga rural farmers. Ayan. Na habang nagtatrabaho sila sa mainit na araw ay masabi nating napakasisipag at pursige nila. Panoorin naman natin ngayon yung video about Antonio Pigafetta's first voyage around the world at travelogue. Nakasama niya dito si Ferdinand Magellan, first circumnavigation of the earth. Para malaman natin ano pang mga lugar o tinatawag nating isla ng rekado ang napuntahan ni Antonio Pigafetta kasama si Ferdinand Magellan. Diba si Antonio Pigafetta, siya yung assistant ni Ferdinand Magellan at alamin natin kung sino-sino nga ba ang namatay at ilang crew na lang ang natira. Let's watch the video.
A Simple History, Epic History TV collaboration. In the late 1400s, a great new age of European exploration began, led by Portuguese, Spanish and Italian sailors. They made great voyages into the unknown, full of danger, adventure and discovery. These pioneers were driven by Christian zeal and profit. In Europe, spices like cinnamon, cloves and nutmeg, which grew only in the Far East, were worth their weight in gold. Whoever controlled their trade was guaranteed immense wealth. By 1518, the route to the so-called Spice Islands was dominated by Portugal. Spain wanted a route of its own. Enter 38-year-old Portuguese sailor Fernando de Magellan. Ferdinand Magellan, as he's known in English, was a brilliant navigator who'd spent many years sailing the Indian Ocean. But he'd fallen out with the King of Portugal, and now offered a bold plan to his rival, King Charles I of Spain. Magellan believed it was possible to sail around the New World and reach the Spice Islands from the east, since, contrary to popular myth, it had been widely accepted for centuries that the Earth was round. King Charles accepted Magellan's proposal and helped him assemble an expedition with 270 crew and 5 ships known as carracks. The fleet set sail on the 20th of September 1519 and crossed a stormy Atlantic to reach the future site of Rio de Janeiro in modern Brazil. Here the men traded with local tribes, exchanging simple objects like metal fish hooks and playing cards for fresh food and water. Magellan continued south until winter storms forced him to camp at Puerto San Julian. There, Magellan faced a mutiny led by Spanish officers convinced he was leading them to their doom. Magellan acted swiftly and ruthlessly. He sent loyal men to kill one of the ringleaders, while another was captured and executed. 2 others were marooned, left behind when the fleet sailed south again in August. As Magellan searched for a passage west, one ship, the Santiago, was wrecked, though the crew were saved. Another ship, the San Antonio, deserted and sailed home. But Magellan did discover a 350-mile strait, which now bears his name, through to the far ocean, a sea that seemed so calm, he named it Mar Pacifico, the Peaceful Sea, or Pacific Ocean. But the Pacific Ocean was far bigger than they'd estimated. Their supplies ran out. The men were forced to eat rats and drink putrid water. 19 died of scurvy. Then, after 99 days at sea, the lookouts spied land. They'd found Guam in the Mariana Islands, but when the islanders stole one of their boats, fighting broke out, and Magellan had to leave without fresh provisions. A week later, Magellan and his men became the first Europeans to reach the Philippines, where they were able to feast on bananas and coconuts. With Magellan's Malay slave acting as translator, they sailed on through the Philippines to Cebu, where they made an alliance with a local ruler who agreed to be baptized a Christian and swore allegiance to the King of Spain. A local chief from the island of Mactan then asked Magellan for help in defeating his rival, named Datu Lapu-Lapu, and Magellan agreed. He crossed to Mactan with 60 men in boats. But though the Europeans had superior weapons and armour, they were massively outnumbered. After burning the enemy village, Magellan's men were driven back into the shallow water, where Magellan himself was cut down as they tried to reach the boats. Now, their former allies on Cebu turned on Magellan's crew, butchering 30 of them in an ambush. The survivors fled. With only enough men left to crew 2 ships, they burned the Concepcion and continued their search for the Spice Islands. They travelled to the Muslim court of Brunei on Borneo and were amazed by its splendour. Finally, with the help of local guides, and more than 2 years after sailing from Spain, they reached their destination. the Spice or Maluku Islands, today part of Indonesia. They traded everything they had for all the cloves their 2 ships could carry. But as they prepared for the long voyage home, the Trinidad sprang a leak and had to stay behind for repairs. Its crew later tried to return to Spain across the Pacific, but most of the men became sick or died. The survivors had to return to the Maluku Islands, where they and the Trinidad were captured by the Portuguese. The Victoria, the last and smallest ship of Magellan's fleet, sailed west for home, captained by Juan Sebastian Elcano. Crossing the Indian Ocean, it took 9 weeks of battling headwinds before they could round the Cape of Good Hope. The men began to starve once more. 21 died before they found fresh provisions at Cape Verde. On the 8th of September 1522, almost exactly 3 years after their departure, the famished, exhausted crew of the Victoria cast anchor at Seville, Spain. Just 18 of the original crew of 270 had made it home. But what they and Magellan's expedition had achieved was astonishing. The first voyage of circumnavigation around the world. Mankind at last had final conclusive proof that their planet was a sphere, and a greater idea than ever before of its vast size. It was an incredible feat, not repeated for 58 years, when an Englishman named Francis Drake made his own remarkable voyage around the Earth. This video was made with our friends at Epic History TV. Watch the other half of this exploration double bill with the story of Francis Drake here. And if you don't already, why not subscribe to both channels? And click the bell to get notified of every new video.
Okay, class, pagkatapos yung mapanood, nalaman natin kung saang-saang bansa nga ba nagpunta si Ferdinand Magellan, yung kanyang first circumnavigation na kasama si Antonio Pigafetta. At dito ay napatunayan na bilog ang mundo. Mula sa kanilang bansa, sa Portugal at Spain, nagpunta sila ng iba't ibang mga bansa, Brazil, dumaan sila sa Indonesia, sa Pilipinas, sa Mactan, Cebu, nakalaban ni Magellan si Lapu-Lapu dahil ayaw ni Lapu-Lapu na magpabinyag sa relihiyong Kristyanismo. Kaya napatay ni Lapu-Lapu si Magellan. Kaya si Antonio Pigafetta na lamang ang natira. Maraming naisulat o maraming na-drawing din na illustration si Antonio Pigafetta sa mga isla ng Recado na kanilang napuntahan, yung Marianas na ngayon ay Guam, sa Molucco Island, Island of Moluccos, yan ay mga isla rin ng Recado. Ganyan din naman, sa mga napuntahan nila sa Cape of Good Hope, pabalik sa Espanya at sa Portugal. Tandaan nating mabuti na hindi talaga madali yung ginawang paglalakbay nila Ferdinand Magellan at ni Antonio Pigafetta kasi sa 270 na crew na sakay nila ay 80 na lamang ang nakabalik sa Espanya. Ibig sabihin, yung iba ay namatay sa gutom, yung iba ay namatay sa sakit kasi nga kahit ultimo daga ay kinakain na lamang nila sa sobrang nilang gutom sa kanilang circumnavigation sa buong mundo. Ayan, at nalaman natin na Victoria na lamang ang nakabalik. Yung barkong Victoria na lamang ang nakabalik sa Espanya. Yung iba ay, nung nasa Mactan, Cebu sila, yung conception ay sinunog yung barkong iyon. At yung iba naman ay lumubog na barko. Okay, ang dami nating mga nalaman sa Antonio Pigafetta's first voyage around the world, a travelogue. On September 8, 1522, the crew of the Victoria cast anchor in the waters of Seville, Spain, having just completed the first circumnavigation of the world. On board was Antonio Pigafetta, a young Italian nobleman who had joined the expedition 3 years before and served as an assistant to Ferdinand Magellan en route to the Molucca Islands. Magellan was dead. The rest of the fleet was gone. The Santiago shipwrecked, the San Antonio overtaken, the Concepcion burned, and the Trinidad abandoned. Okay, mapapansin natin na kahit si Antonio Pigafetta ay isang Italian, siya ay naging assistant ni Ferdinand Magellan. Naghahanap sila ng isla ng mga Ricardo. At ano nga ba ang nangyari sa kanyang crew? Sa 217, 80 na lang ang natira, ang nakasurvive. At ano nga ba yung nangyari sa kanilang mga barko? Yung Santiago, ito ay shipwreck, lumubog. Sa San Antonio, nag-overtake. Yung Concepcion naman ay sinunog, yung Trinidad naman ay inabandona na nila. Ayan. Of the 237 sailors who departed from Seville, 18 returned on the Victoria. Ayan, dito sinasabi 237 sailors. Pero sa video kanina, sabi ay 217 na sailors ang kasama sa kanilang circumnavigation. Okay. Pigafetta had managed to survive along with his journal notes that detailed the discovery of the western road to the Moluccas. And along the way, new land, new peoples on the far side of the Pacific. The fleet had stumbled across the Marianas Archipelago and some 300 digs farther west the Philippines. Dito masabi natin na unang kanilang hinanap ay ang isla ng Moluccas. At gayon din naman, dahil nga nasa Pacific Ocean sila, nakarating sila ng Marianas Archipelago na ngayon ay Guam, at nakarating din sila sa Pilipinas. 80 na lamang ang natira sa 237 na crew or sailors. Pigafetta's journal became the basis for his 1525 travelogue, the first voyage around the world. According to scholar Tudor Cachi Jr., the travelogue represented the literary epitome of its genre and achieved an international reputation. One of Pigafetta's patrons, Francisco Ricati, called the journal a divine thing, and Shakespeare himself seems to have been inspired by work. Setebos, a deity invoked in Pigafetta's text by men of Patagonia, makes an appearance in the Tempest. Ibig sabihin, ang pinagbatayan na ni Tudor Cachi Jr. sa kanyang pag-aaral doon kung bilog nga ba ang mundo, ay yung isa sa mga journal notes na ginawa ni Antonio Pigafettas. At ito rin ay nabasa mula sa akda ni Shakespeare na kung saan na-inspired si Shakespeare sa journal na ginawa ni Pigafettas. Or ni Pigafetta, ni Antonio Pigafetta's journal, siya ay na-inspired. At sabi nga dito, ito ay kinilala bilang literary epitome of its genre. Kasi nga, comprehensive at napakadetalyado ang journal ni Antonio Pigafetta. First voyage Cachi points out is intent on marveling at what it encounters, and therein lies much of its appeal. It is a work that it's intent on wonder, on astonishment. In travel writing, one often must recreate the first moment of newness, the fresh sense of awe on the page for the reader. Pigafetta does it again and again by revealing in other bits of detail. We watch Pigafetta wonder at trees in Borneo whose leaves appear to walk around one's shed. Leaves that have no blood, but if one touches them, they run away. I kept one of them for 9 days in a box. Katulad ng sinasabi dito ni Cachi, sa first voyage ni Antonio Pigafetta, mapapansin natin na mayroong mga nakasama dito na nakita si Pigafetta tulad ng makahiya, na kapag hinipo mo yung dahon, pag nahawakan mo yung dahon, kusa itong titiklop. Ano? Ayan, yun daw yung kanyang um, itinago ng 9 na araw sa kahon. At meron din silang nakitang mga puno sa Borneo na parang 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 walang dugo, parang yung leaves na iyon nung naglalakad sila ay masasabi natin na walang dugo. Ibig sabihin, para siyang makahiya, buhay, pero kapag hinawakan mo, kusang tumitiklop. Pero wala siyang nakitang dugo dun sa halamang o punong iyon. When I opened the box, that leaf went round and round it. I believe those leaves live on nothing but air. Pigafetta 76. We marvel in the Philippines at sea snails capable of felling whales by feeding on their hearts once ingested. On a stop in Brazil, we see an infinite number of parrots, monkeys that look like lions, and swine that have their navels on their backs, and large birds with beaks, legs, spoons, and notangs. Ayan, ang dami niya na rin nakita sa paglalakbay nila, lalo na sa Pilipinas. Mga suso, mga balyena, at syempre nung sila ay nagpunta sa Brazil ay marami sila nakitang parrots at maring ding unggoy or monkey na para daw lion. At meron din sila nakitang mga baboy doon. Ayan. At may mga ibon doon na masabi nating large birds with beaks like spoons and notangs. Di ba? Mahaba yung kanilang tuka pero wala silang dila. And yet, the very newness that can give travel writing so much its power creates problem of its own. For the travel writer, there is, on the one hand, the authority of his or her observational eye, on the other, the call for humanity in confronting the unknown. Pigafetta, encountering a new people, tries to earn his authority through a barrage of detail. He attempts to reconstruct their world for us, what they look like, where they live, what they eat, what they say. He gives us pages and pages of words from Patagonia, from Cebu, from Tidor. Dito pa lang ay masabi natin ang dami niyang na isulat or naitala sa kanyang journal. Maging yung kung inobserbahan niya kung paano nabubuhay yung mga tao, paano sila kumakain, ano yung kanilang sinasabi. Ayan. At syempre lahat ng ito ay kanyang naidetalye batay sa kanyang obserbasyon. At dahil nga dito, ayan, marami tayong mga nababasa ng mga pinanggalingan niya tulad sa Patagonia, from Cebu, Philippines, from Tidor. But there is a little humility and one can hardly expect there to be so. Not early in 16th century, a few decades after the Pope had divided the uncharted world between Spain and Portugal, and certainly not on this expedition, where Magellan and his partners had been promised in a contract agreement with the Spanish monarchy the title of lieutenants and governors over the lands they could discover for themselves and their heirs in perpetuity, and cash sums 1/20th of the profits from those lands. At yung kanilang mga kinita, yung kanilang mga nakuha, ay maaring paghati-hatian dun sa mga bansang kanilang napuntahan, yung kung ano man yung mga nakuha nila na kayamanan o anumang mga bagay doon. At dahil nga nahati na yung Spain and Portugal, pero meron naman silang kontrata na ipagpapatuloy nila ito sa Spanish monarchy kay King Charles I, ayan, para daw sa mga titulo ng lieutenants and governors na nadiscovery nila kung sino-sino yung mga sino-sino yung mga naging apu-apuhan, yung mga nagmana nito. In First Voyage is a great gulf between what Pigafetta sees and what Pigafetta knows. I grew up in the Marianas hearing about this gulf. It is a part of why travel writing can be so proud for me now. On reaching the Marianas after nearly 4 months at the sea with no new provisions. Ayan, nakarating din sila sa gulf na kung saan maraming nakita si Pigafetta dito at marami siyang nalaman. Lalong-lalo na sa Marianas Islands na ngayon ay tinatawag namin Guam. At dahil nga dito, nagkaroon siya ng paraan ng pagsulat ng isang travelogue o ng isang pagsulat ng paglalakbay na kung saan ay dito ipinakita kung ano nga ba yung makikita sa Marianas. The Captain General wished to stop at the large island and get some fresh food, but he was unable to do so because the inhabitants of what the island entered the ships and stole whatever they could lay their hands on, in such a manner that we could not defend ourselves. The sailors did not understand that this was a custom, that for the islanders, property was communal and visitors were expected to share what they had. Ayan, yung Captain General sa mga oras na yan ay nag-stop sila sa isang malaking isla na kung saan ay maraming mga isda, fresh food na makikita dito. At hindi nila alam, akala nila na ninakaw na yung kanilang mga gamit. Pero isa palang tradition or customs na kapag pumunta ka dun sa islang iyon, kailangan mo mag-share ng mga bagay na meron ka. Lalong-lalo na yung mga bisita. Kailangan mo mag-share kung ano man yung mga bagay na meron kayo dun sa barko ninyo. So in that first moment of contact, Magellan and his starving crew retaliated. They went ashore and burned, by Pigafetta's account, 40 to 50 houses. They killed 7 men. Mutual astonishment at the new and the wondrous took a dark turn. Dito ay may malagim na pangyayari kasi kailangan nilang manunog ng 40 hanggang 50 mga bahay at pumatay din sila ng 7 tao. Ayan, para maipakita dito na dahil nga sa sobrang gutom nila, maaring nagnako na sila ng pagkain para lamang makasurvive. At ang pamaraan na yon ay pagpatay at panununog ng bahay. When we wounded any of those people with our crossbow shafts, which passed completely through their lions or their loins from one side to the other, they looking at it, pulled on the shaft, now on this and now on that side, and then drew it out with great astonishment and so died. Others who were wounded in the breast did the same, which moved us to a great compassion. We saw some women in their boats who were crying out and tearing their hair for love, I believe, of their dead. Okay, dahil nga marami silang napatay at maraming mga nag-iiyak ang mga babae, syempre sa kanilang mga namatay na mahal sa buhay, at gayon din naman dahil nga sa pakikipagdigmaan nila, ayan, marami ang mga nagbuwis ng buhay para sa mga lugar na kanilang napuntahan. Magellan named the archipelago Islas de los Ladrones, the islands of thieves. The name would stick for the next 300 years, long after the islands were absorbed into Spanish Empire. The name, the bold condemnatory stroke of it, has long been anchored to my past, to those old history lessons. There is no feeling in it but rage. So I was surprised to see in Pigafetta's text, the sailors moved to compassion. They seemed to understand in that moment of astonishment that the islanders are defenseless against the unknown. Okay, tinawag nila yung isang archipelago na yun na Islas de los Ladrones or Island or Thieves. Ibig sabihin sa loob ng 300 taon, dito nila napansin na may mga isla na talagang nasakop talaga ng Spanish Empire o ng mga Espanyol. At dahil nga dito mapapansin natin sa kasaysayan ay mababanggit yung mga bansang kanilang mga nasakop. Lalong-lalo na yung mga sailors o yung mga crew na kung saan ay masabi natin na may awa ba o walang awa dun sa mga taong iyon, sa mga napatay nilang tao, sa mga taga-isla. From the Marianas, the fleet moved on to the Philippines. They lingered there, exploring the land, exchanging gifts with the chiefs, observing the people, and I know what's coming for the people. I know that we're seeing through Pigafetta the hash of word just before it changes, wholly and entirely. And there is Pigafetta marveling at the coconuts and the bananas, at the naked people and beautiful people. It's happening even now in the text as the Filipino pilots are captured to direct the way to the Moluccas, the way to the spices. At dito mapapansin natin na nakasama dito sa journal ni Pigafetta yung pagkain nila ng coconut at ng mga sagi or the bananas. At gayon din naman, mula dito ay dumiretso sila sa Moluccas Island. Mula sa Pilipinas ay nakatagpo sila ng isla pa ng mga Ricardo. There is Pigafetta roaming, cataloging, and recording, caught up in the first flash of a new word, and as I read, I can start to hear my father describing his country, wondering at it. My father traveling as a young man up and down Luzon. Across the sea to the Visayas, across the sea to Mindanao, I can hear the ardor and the sadness and the terror and the delight. And I can hear the wonder, I can feel the pulse to move. Ayan, dahil nga nabasa niya lahat ng ito na patungkol kay Pigafetta sa kanyang journal, masabi natin na yung paglalakbay ni Pigafetta o ni Magellan mula Luzon hanggang Visayas hanggang Mindanao ay masabi natin kalungkot-lungkot at katakot-takot kasi marami ngang mga nagdanas ng buhay dahil sa kanilang pakikipaglaban dito sa mga Kastila or pakikipaglaban ng mga sailor ng mga crew ng Kastila sa mga katutubo o sa mga islander. I suppose this is what a great travel writing gives us a way to wholly enter a moment, a feeling, a body, a way to be changed. I can be my father marveling at his country, our country, transformed by its vast expanse. I can be Pigafetta on the deck of the Trinidad, moved to write from shock and wonder, and I can be the woman on a boat in the Marianas crying out loud for the dead. At masabi natin na marami talagang nagbuwis ng buhay dito sa islang ito, maraming namatay, mga inosente, at dahil nga yung Trinidad o yung barkong Trinidad na yan ay nakakashock daw. Ibig sabihin, maraming naganap na patayan ng mga tanong iyan. At syempre, nakita rin nila sa Marianas yung mga kababaihan na umiiyak dahil sa kanilang mga namatay na mahal sa buhay. For your individual activity, number 1, make a comparative analysis of 3 videos using compare and contrast charts. Fernando Amorsolo's paintings, Juan Luna's paintings, Antonio Pigafetta's first voyage around the world, a travelogue. Okay, ito yung magiging example or ito yung magiging compare and contrast chart na dapat nyo maisagawa. Ayan, Fernando Amorsolo's painting, Juan Luna's paintings, Antonio Pigafetta's first voyage around the world, a travelogue, compare and contrast. Okay, maraming salamat sa inyong panonood at pakikinig. Hanggang sa muli, paalam. God bless. Thank you.